Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time of day it is, I pray that your mind, your heart, and your spirit are all poised to receive, to accept, and respond to words of wisdom. Ashe. They say opposites attract, right? And I agree. Opposites definitely attract. But sometimes opposites attract and they complement one another, they enhance one another, they bring out the best in one another. Other times, opposites attract and they can contradict one another, they conflict with one another, they bring out the worst in one another. And this came to mind because right now I'm back in California. I'm from California, but I moved away, and this is the first time I've been back um, in like 8 months. And this is the longest I've been outside of the state for a while. And so as soon as I came back, it jogged these memories, both from my young adulthood and my youth, my childhood. One of the things that came to mind was a memory of being with my play cousins, right? You know how we got play cousins, play aunts, play uncles. And we had spent the whole day together. And one of my uncles looks at me and he's talking to the other adults there and he says, "This is the most laid back kid I've ever seen in my life." And everybody laughed and made a little remark about, just how chill I was as a little kid. And it rings true, right? When I think about my natural disposition, I'm pretty down to earth, pretty low key, right? But as fate would have it, I uh, fell in love with a woman who was the opposite of low key. I would go so far as to say she had like her default was kind of anxious. She had sort of an anxious, agitated sort of a vibe about her. And the way I experienced our relationship as a result was I was always trying to put out fires. I was always trying to bring calm and peace and order to what seemed to be a constantly chaotic experience. And even though that's what I thought I was doing, right? My mind was telling me, but my ego was telling me that I was bringing peace. In reality, I was normalizing confusion. I was normalizing chaos. I was normalizing, tumultuous energy, right? So it was like no matter what, I could expect and anticipate that there was going to be some kind of an eruption. I didn't know when, I didn't know how long it would last, but it was just normal, standard operating procedure, right? And um, that's not normal, right? That's not normal. It's not healthy. It reminds me of a verse of Ifa that tells a boatman. The boatman had a profession, which was rowing the boat, and he was really good at it. He could navigate the waters. He was skillful, but he was looking for a wife. And Ifa says to him, "Boatman, you're gonna find a wife, but you got to be careful because the woman who's coming to you is going to be running from something. She's on the run, and whatever it is that she's running from is going to chase her onto your boat, and it stands the chances of capsizing your boat and creating a real calamity in your life." Well, the boatman took the advice to make the Ebo. He made the sacrifice, but he refused to take the advice and stay away from the woman. He married the woman, and you can imagine what happened. She ran onto his boat and created a whole bunch of confusion and capsized the boat, and the rest is history. Now, I like that example because what we tend to do is when it comes to relationships, we tend to um, launch into blaming other people, right? When our opposites attract and they create confusion and chaos in our lives, and the relationships don't quote work out, we have a tendency to blame the other person and find fault with the other person, and that's just a form of ego protection. We when we're immature, we want to maintain the image as though um, we're good and everybody else is bad, right? But there's no growth in that, and there's no progress in that. There's no self discovery in that. The more mature, progressive stance is really to stop looking for fault and blame altogether. It's not a question of always looking good or being right. It's a question of understanding how things really happen. Okay. And so when I look at the verse of Ifa that I referenced earlier, you can see that the boatman made two choices. On one hand, he chose deliberately that he was going to make the sacrifice, but he also chose he was going to ignore the observances. He didn't take the advice to stay away from the woman in question. And so it was his decisions that created his experiences. And so that's the first lesson that I really want you to take away from this particular bit of the conversation. It's your decisions that create your experiences. Okay. And then it's your experiences. If you reflect on your experiences will then create values. Right. So when I reflect on my experience, I realize, hey, although I think I'm bringing calm and peace to my environment, what I'm really doing is I'm internalizing chaos and confusion. And that's not what I want to do. So I need to make a different set of decisions so that I can create a different kind of an experience for myself. Right. And I remember the day, looking out my kitchen window and just saying out loud to myself, oh, I'm back. I'm back. I just could feel myself back. I had totally decompressed and kind of purged all of that anxiety, and I was back to being myself. And it was at that moment that I had a real value for what I brought to the world. I had a real value for my natural state of being, right? And I understood, oh, this is what Ifa means when Ifa says do this and don't do that. Is to protect some value, something that you really hold near and dear. You may not understand before you make the decision, but if you take the time after you've made the decision and you reflect on the experience, you'll have a much better appreciation for that value. So, for those who are committed to living their best lives and really elevating themselves to the highest level of their potential and having the full depth of their experience, it's crucial that you understand that your decisions create your experiences, and it's your experiences that drive your values. Aboru aboye, aboshishe.